Hi guys, and welcome back. Let's go ahead and get the Boto3 module installed on our remote dev system. So if you head over here in your browser to pypi.org, this is the Python package index where Python modules are shared with the community. So if we just do a search over here for Boto3, you can see we've got version 1.17.19 here of the Boto3 SDK. You can also check out the release history here to see all of the historical versions. So if you did have a specific version that you needed to get, you could just find that version here and install it. As you can see, it is being updated on a very regular basis. Every few days, there's actually a new minor version coming out. So make sure that you are keeping that up to date in your dependencies for your project as well. So all we need to do is run pip3 install for Boto3 here. You can also check out the quick start documentation over here at boto3.amazonaws.com/v1/documentation. So this is just the Python documentation for the Boto3 module. If you drill into that quick start, you can see under the installation directions here, we've got the pip install Boto3 command. I usually like to use pip3 as the command just to make sure that I am disambiguating from if Python 2 runtime was installed on the system as well. And then you can also install a specific version by using the version specifiers for pip right down here. And so let's go ahead and do that now. So over here in our VS Code window on our remote SSH EC2 environment, we'll do a pip3 install Boto3, and that will just grab the latest version that's available, as well as any dependencies. Now you'll also notice that there is a module installed called Boto Core down here, and that is just one of the dependencies that it has that is used to reference the APIs in AWS. So that is also coming from Amazon as well. There's a couple of other small dependencies here as well, like S3 transfer, JMES path, as well as the Python date util module. So just a few different ones that are installed here, and we are pretty much good to go at this point. So if we do pip3 list, we should see the Boto3 module show up as installed on our system. Sure enough, right here, and you can also see the specific version number on your system. So if that were ever to get out of date, you can just do a pip3 install and do an upgrade with the --upgrade parameter on pip. So now that we've got that installed, let's go ahead and create a new Python file here, and we'll go ahead and take a look at how to actually use this particular module. So let's go ahead and just we'll open up our home directory and then do a new file here. We'll call this boto3-intro.py. And one of the great things about using the Python extension here for VS Code is that we get things like IntelliSense or auto-completion for our installed modules on our system. So if I just hit Control-B to close that sidebar, we can do import and then hit Control-space, and it will automatically complete a list of modules that are on our system. And as you can see, Boto3 is actually coming back in this list here. So let's do an import on Boto3, and then we'll say import Boto3 as AWS. And so we'll just kind of rename that import here so that we can use that going forward. Now, if we were to proceed in this quick start documentation over here, you would see that one of the configuration steps that you would need to follow is to set up your access key ID and your secret access key. And thankfully, because we are using EC2 and we've attached an identity and access management role to our EC2 instance, we don't actually have to follow these steps here to set up these credentials in our shared credentials file. However, if you were planning to use a local development environment, like on your dev system that you are working on, if you have a laptop, for example, or if you are setting up a Docker container that you want to run inside of, then you would need to make sure that you set up your shared credentials file here. But we're going to go ahead and skip over that. One of the other things that you'll want to take note of is that anytime you are making API calls to AWS, the region specifier is going to be imperative. And this is because most services in AWS are region specific. So if you're provisioning a resource like a virtual private cloud or an EC2 instance, or if you're creating a load balancer, for example, these are going to be region specific services, and so you'll need to select the AWS region that you would like to utilize. So we're going to take a look at how to do that from Python here. Now you could do that inside of your shared credentials file if you'd like to. However, another way to do that is to actually create something called a Boto3 session object. Let's go ahead and drill into the documentation for the session. So over here under core references, we'll drill under the session reference here. And as you can see under the Boto3 module, there is a session child module, and then there is a class called session with a capital S on it that has the ability to pass in your credentials. So you could pass in your access key ID this way as well, instead of using the shared credentials file. You also have the option to specify a session token if you're using temporary credentials from this AWS Security Token Service. And you also have this region name specifier here. So what we'll do is actually construct one of these session objects, and we'll pass in the region name named parameter into that class constructor and create a new session. Now, if you are using the shared credentials file, you could actually use the profile name down here as well, or you could just statically pass in the AWS access key ID and the secret access key as parameters as well. So even though these parameters are all kind of shared on the constructor for the session object here, they are kind of exclusive to each other, where you would use these two together or these three together, and you would use the profile name separately as well. So let's go ahead and just construct one of these session objects, and we'll pass in the region name. Now, the region name can be retrieved from the AWS Management Console right up here. You're just going to want to look at the short name over here. So you've got like US-East-1, US-East-2, and so on and so forth. I'm going to be working inside of the US-West-2 region here, but feel free to pick a region that works for your particular use case that's localized to you. So let's go ahead and construct this session object here. So we'll come back over to our VS Code session here. And inside of the Boto3 module, we'll do import boto3.session. And once we have the session module installed, we'll go ahead and do a from statement instead. And we'll say from boto3.session import the session class here. So now that we've got this session class imported into our Python script here, let's go ahead and construct a session object. So we'll do session, and then you can see we get the IntelliSense here for the valid input parameters for the constructor on the session class. And so let's go ahead and plug in the region name. I'll just type region and hit tab to complete that. And then I'll plug in US-West-2. And we'll assign this to a variable called ses. And so now we can have this session object and actually use this to create a client object inside of the Boto3 library so that we can access different services within AWS. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.